Hello everybody, my name is Novi and welcome back to the channel. Last week I talked all about franchise players in AEW, where I described them as the kind of athletes who aren't just the best players on a team, but are the team itself. And while that's not wrong, that doesn't mean the team can function on them alone. You need people around those stars to be able to reach the highest of highs. After all, most sports are team sports, and you can translate this over to wrestling, where all over every promotion around the world, you'll find role players. Now, this term gets thrown around a lot and doesn't exactly have a set in stone definition. So just for full transparency, I'm describing this as wrestlers who have found a specific place or niche in a promotion that they've found success in. And if that doesn't make sense, you'll see as we go along, as we have 5 different role players to go over. But before we do, make sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel, where we're always talking Graps. To kick things off, I want to start with the steady veteran in Dustin Rhodes, who time and time again has proven to be someone that AEW can call upon as an experienced presence. I think back to his first big moment in AEW with his match versus Cody, no Rhodes at the time, and how good he was then, to how well he's aged 5 years later in a recent outing with MJF, where in the promos leading up to their match, he was as fiery as ever. Then in the match itself, he was as steady as ever, working as the hometown hero, which in both cases is a stark contrast to how some of his contemporaries in AEW, like Chris Jericho, Jeff Jarrett, or Billy Gunn, feel these days, as they all seem so inconsistent compared to Dustin, who never feels like he's lost that pep in his step. Even if he's working Ring of Honor alongside Sammy Guevara as the Sons of Texas, he's still out there doing his thing, even having multiple memorable matches, especially the one with The Righteous on Final Battle 2024, where despite the lack of blood that feels so necessary in a bull rope match, Dustin never felt like he was phoning it in, especially when I know he would have bled if they let him. We've seen that plenty of times. All in all though, the veterans on any given wrestling roster can add so many invaluable things, from training and bringing up younger talent to just being a steady hand. And I'd say Dustin Rhodes in AEW has been a bit of all of those things, making him one of AEW's most important role players. Next up, we should talk about one of the coolest luchadors going today, the Beast Mortos, who despite that is a wrestler who is constantly losing on AEW TV, especially in the notable singles matches. However, that's not entirely a bad thing, even if I would like to see him pick up some wins, only because of how well he performs in that role. He's pretty much always going to give the person he's putting over a good match, and he's pretty much always gonna make them look fantastic, as he's still easily one of the best bases in the entire world right now. If you need perfect evidence of that, watch anything he's done with Hologram, where in their character-defining rivalry across 3 singles matches in AEW, including one on pay-per-view that they earned through working so well together, he's been the steady half of those remarkable matches that has also provided those engagement accounts with some sweet highlight reel clips of Hologram just doing cool shit. And I don't want it to go understated that Mortos can also do some really cool shit in these matches, as he's so incredibly athletic and agile for a man of his size. Really, he's got it all to fit perfectly into the role he's in as the good match generating pin eater. So unfortunately, it's kinda hard to see him breaking that glass ceiling into something higher. However, he absolutely deserves immense respect as one of the best luchadors in the entire world right now, regardless of wins and losses. On that note, speaking of someone who doesn't win much, we have Serpentico or John Cruz as the next AEW role player I want to highlight. Now, he's not at all in the same category as anyone else on this list. He's rarely featured on main AEW TV, and when he is, it's in a match that goes under 2 minutes and sees him getting squashed. But it's actually for that reason that he's here, because if I had to give the role of Dark Match Ace to anyone, it'd be him. Not just because of his work on actual AEW Dark or ROH Now, that's an entirely separate conversation that we'll have, but because of the dark matches that you'll only see if you go to an AEW show in person. If you're someone who's been to a Dynamite or Collision taping at pretty much any point in AEW's existence, you know what I'm talking about. But if you haven't, I'm referring to the very high chance that you'll see Serpentico or John Cruz, whoever he decides to be that night, working someone before the show. He could face an AEW name or an unknown talent. It's truly a mystery every time, but him appearing is not. Because if he's not in one of those pre-show dark matches by any chance, he's usually doing something on ROH. Or even in that elevated spot, nothing really changes at all. Not because he's just not caring about it, but because nothing really needs to. Because no matter the show, you want him to bump around like crazy and sell huge for his opponent's offense. Which is exactly what he does. He fills his role perfectly, making him one of AEW's lesser appreciated role players. Someone that is very appreciated, however, deservedly so, is Mark Briscoe, who is infectious energy, whether in matches or cutting promos, in a way I feel is unmatched across the world today. Some of his work that highlights each of those two aspects best is the stuff with the conglomeration, and maybe to the surprise of some, his stuff with Chris Jericho. Before we get to the latter though, we'll start with the former, that fun-loving conglomerate made up of Mark Briscoe, Kyle O'Reilly, Orange Cassidy, Tomohiro Ishii, Willow Nightingale, and Rocky Romero, whose help when it comes to vibes in AEW over the summer of 2024 can't be understated, as they would always give you an enjoyable, engaging, hot 10 to 15 minute match on any given show, with Mark leading the charge in that category as the glue of the group, as well as the word of the day giver, it has to be mentioned. But in these matches, he is paired with and against some really great workers, so I could see not giving him all of the credit. However, he deserves exactly that for what he did with Chris Jericho, as mentioned earlier, where he managed to get a good match out of a seemingly cooked Chris Jericho twice. It's crazy what he did there, and the funny part is, it's not like there's no explanation for how he did it. It wasn't just luck or anything like that. Mark managed the feats through that infectious energy, that spirit, that heart that he carries in spades to the ring with him every time. It's a special, unreplicable part of his work that makes him so singular, that makes his role as the reliable, heartwarming babyface that is going to give you energy no matter what so important to AEW. And while I'm not sure it'll ever reach this far, I think it is so special, I think it is so unique, it is so felt through AEW's audience that it could carry Mark Briscoe to an AEW World Championship one day. At least it'd be something I'd be totally there for, as I think Mark Briscoe is the perfect embodiment of what makes wrestling special. Lastly, I think it's best to look at someone whose role has taken him to the highest of highs in AEW, Samoa Joe. Now, this role he's got is completely unique to him, as he's the ultimate stabilizing force in AEW. He's the guy you call upon when something or someone needs saving. As in the AEW World Championship, for example, after what was a pretty disastrous 406-day MJF reign, where that belt lost so much of its prestige and all of its luster by getting put through bad storyline after bad storyline. Especially the one right before Joe, where Max and Jay White did some of the worst stuff AEW has ever done. Stuff that Jay White still hasn't fully recovered from. Aside from that though, at the time, it truly felt like the main event scene was going to take forever to recover from this traumatic event. But despite that, Samoa Joe powered through and did what he does best. He made the title feel like a prize again, like the ultimate thing to win in AEW, just by wearing it with pride and speaking about it like it meant the world to him in a uniquely exalting way that only Samoa Joe could, which in turn made Swerve Strickland's win over him for the world title feel like such an impactful moment. A feeling of weight Swerve could carry coming out to use as fuel to take himself to new heights, which, as we know, he absolutely 100% did, and that's in large part due to what Samoa Joe did with the world title before he won it. However, the title isn't the only thing that he's revitalized, and I would even say it's the most impressive thing he's revitalized. I'd actually give that nod to what he's done with the cold-hearted, handsome devil, Hook, who at multiple times has felt dead in the water in AEW, destined to fizzle out after what was a promising debuting stretch, only for Samoa Joe to come in and make him look like the coolest guy in the room once again. My brain would describe this as Joe's aura masking any negative aura Hook may have. And quite honestly, that is the only way I can describe what's going on, because it's simply so insane to see the level of worker that Samoa Joe inspires Hook to be. Most notably seen in one of, if not my favorite TV match of 2024 on the January 17th AEW Dynamite, where Hook took on Samoa Joe in his first defense of the AEW World title. I've always been so high on this match, but with each passing day, as Hook continues to be a stagnant wrestler, this gets more and more impressive. Joe brought out a level of fire and intensity from Hook we hadn't seen before and haven't seen since. The crowd was with Hook in a way they hadn't ever been and haven't ever been since. This is a moment in time against all odds and will age so gracefully as a hidden gem in AEW's incredibly deep match catalog. But it's not specifically there where he saved Hook as an act in AEW. It's actually after the fact, where he brings him under his wing alongside Katsuyori Shibata as Jogoon, or now the Ops, where Hook, alongside Joe and of course Shibata, starts to kind of look like a top guy if you were to squint your eyes. That is so impressive given where Hook was while Samoa Joe was doing other things. Joe is so unique in this ability for what he's done with Hook, for what he's done with the world title, for what he's done for so many other things in AEW. It's while I'd say this role, his role in AEW as their emergency button, who is there to fix something that's gone awry, has been and probably still is the most important role in AEW's history. With that, that's going to do it for the video, everybody. I hope you all enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure to leave a like down below. While you're there, don't forget to leave a comment with your thoughts on these role players, maybe some of your own, and maybe even if you want to see a part 2. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well, where we're always talking Graps. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been Novi. Be well, stay safe, much love, peace.